They were taking over the building. They had changed the locks on the outside doors of the building, denying police and emergency services and the landlords access to the buildings. So they had their own locksmith come out, change the locks on the outside of the buildings, not on the inside apartments, just the access doors to the buildings. They were taking over the complex. They were setting their plans to take over the entire complex. They would sit in the hallways, on the stairs with guns. They would threaten them and their kids when they would walk by. There would be 5 or 6 people out in the courtyard with guns staring at you as you carried your groceries into the building. They didn't have to come up to you and speak to you in English and threaten you. The threat was implied.
Threaten you to do what?
They wanted your empty apartment.
They wanted you to leave?
Oh yeah. They wanted to intimidate every American out of the building. I was the last leaseholder in the building.
The lady who started the immigration fight and brought Trump to Colorado? But first, like and subscribe our channel, click that little bell icon for notifications, and find the Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite listening app. So, Cindy Romero, you're the one who got the video in Aurora, and you're the reason Trump came out and did a rally. Why do you hate Trump so much?
I don't hate him any longer.
Actually, you did, didn't you, at one time?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why did you dislike him or hate him? Why did you change your mind?
I fed into everything the media told me.
Like?
That, Orange Man bad, and he was destroying America, and we weren't going to have any freedoms, and we were going to lose all our rights, and it just turned out not to be true.
But he called you up on stage. He came out here to see Aurora, made Aurora a national icon of immigrants and criminals gone wild, running around taking over apartment buildings, and he called you up on stage. Now, how do you feel about him?
I feel humbled that he would come out and reach out and speak to someone who wasn't a follower, wasn't a supporter, but we related and we talked, and he made me promises, and he kept them.
When you say you talked, when did you talk with him? Mm-hmm. I mean, you were on stage. Is that when you talked with him?
No, when right before the rally actually started, a couple of us were chosen to go back to the back and shake his hand and speak with him for a few minutes.
I've seen this at Van Halen concerts. So you were the groupies who got backstage? Is that?
Well, kind of. They give us really firm instructions. Don't talk to him. Don't touch him. Don't just stand next to him for the picture. And he was so friendly. He came out, immediately shook my hand, pulled me to the side, talked to me a little bit, gave me a great big hug, took pictures with me. It was a great experience. And then, of course, when he called me back up on stage to speak with him directly and speak to the people who were there directly, instead of just my prepared statements, it was very humbling. He's not at all like I expected him to be.
What did you expect?
I expected bigger. I expected I expected him to be a bigger person, like physically. I expected him to be very standoffish and famous, and I didn't find him to be that way. He was very relatable. He had padding inside of his coat, and when he hugged me, I could tell that he is not as big as he looks on camera. He's actually pretty fit. I expected him to be, slightly overweight or heavy, the way they make him look on film, and he's not that at all.
All right, so let's bring it back to why you got his attention. You were the one who took that now infamous film of criminals taking over an apartment building. I just want to make sure I got all this right. This is where you live.
Yes.
This is your apartment building. Mm-hmm. This is home. And those people running around with guns, who were they? How did you take the photo? The video.
Okay, they were Agua members, but I didn't know that at the time. When I reached out to the police, I reported organized criminals because they had their own plumbers, their own electricians, their own locksmiths. So it wasn't like they were just random teenagers, committing crime, which is what it looked like
They had
at
their own
first.
plumbers? What do you mean they had their own plumbers?
They were taking over the building. They had changed the locks on the outside doors of the building, denying police and emergency services and the landlords access to the buildings. So they had their own locksmith come out, change the locks on the outside of the buildings, not on the inside apartments, just the access doors to the buildings. They were taking over the complex. They were setting their plans to take over the entire complex. They succeeded in taking over 3 or 4 of the buildings of the first half of my apartment complex, and then all of the other complex that they ended up closing down.
Help me understand this. When you say taking over, does that mean you'd be writing your rent check to them instead of the legal?
Yes, there were a lot of people there that they were torturing and making them pay them rent. We paid our rent through an app. So I didn't find out till later that most people had stopped paying rent up to a year and a half before I did. So I was still just paying my rent while being held hostage by criminals.
You say being held hostage, but you paid your rent, you had a place to live, they have plumbers, so they must have been fixing the place. What was different? Did they buy the place?
No, they kicked in the doors and took over all the apartments that were emptied. They did a lot of torturing and then threatening people who did live there initially.
When you say torturing, be more specific.
They would sit in the hallways on the stairs with guns. They would threaten them and their kids when they would walk by. There would be 5 or 6 people out in the courtyard with guns staring at you as you carried your groceries into the building. It wasn't. They didn't have to come up to you and speak to you in English and threaten you. The threat was implied. You have to pass.
Threat to do what? I'm sorry to keep.
Oh, no, it's fine.
I just want to make sure I fully understand. Threaten you to do what?
They want your apartment. They wanted your empty apartment.
They wanted you to leave?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, so they didn't want your rent money.
No, they wanted to intimidate every American out of the building. I was the last leaseholder in the building. When my video actually got picked up by the media.
All right, so basically they wanted you out so that they could squat in your apartment.
Oh, yeah, and they used to come up for months. They would come up and ask me for my keys. They would just, can we have your apartment when you leave? And not if you leave, when you leave, because eventually anybody's going to get sick of living like that. I had cameras on all my outside-facing windows, a total of 8 cameras. They didn't care that I had cameras.
So they weren't covert cameras. They weren't hidden cameras. They were right there. And what we saw on the national news.
That was a splice of 2 cameras, actually. I had a doorbell camera and then a camera up in the corner of my door. So when one camera would stop, the other one would pick it up. And that's why it looks like it's 2 different camera views in the video. But I'd been submitting videos to Aurora PD for, 8 months before that video went viral.
8 months?
8 months.
And what did the police tell you?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Let me rephrase that. So what did the police do in Aurora?
They would come out and they would give me excuses as to why they couldn't do anything. Consent decree. Their higher-ups had told them not to. Their hands had been tied. They didn't want to seem racist by focusing on the crime that's happening just in my neighborhood, because it was very saturated with illegal migrants there. And they didn't want to seem like they were being racist by focusing on them and the crime in that area. So there was literally over 400 calls I made to 911 that were ignored. Nobody ever even showed up.
What was your average call? In other words, hi, I'm 911, what's your emergency? And you would say what?
50 drunk people with guns outside my window partying all night when I had to work the next morning. That was usually
just a regular
my call.
Independence Institute day. Did they hurt you? Did they?
No, they would just intimidate anyone who would walk by. So I couldn't have my family come visit. My grandkids weren't allowed to visit there. It was just too dangerous. You'd have to pass by people who were drunk. There was people sex trafficking there in the apartment buildings. There was drugs in plain view. It's not something you would want to have children around, let alone your kids, you know.
Why didn't you leave?
Couldn't afford to. Couldn't afford to. The great thing about is where I lived, it was very low income. And because of the pushing out of Denver that the mayors did by raiding the homeless camps, it pushed the homeless people out of Denver and into Aurora. So we had all these homeless migrants that had no place to go. They all focused on settling in the lower income parts of town. I had no choice but to stay. I literally moved there so I could get ahead, you know, catch up on your bills.
So when your video really got traction, it seemed like the city of Aurora was saying, no, this is not an issue. This is not an issue, not an issue. And then when Trump grabbed it and used it as a campaign image, and a really successful one, people here were really angry. How, because we're trying to build Aurora, we're trying to get a better, and you're giving the world the impression that the whole city is like this, which is inaccurate.
Right.
How do you feel about all that? Did Aurora respond properly?
I don't think so. I don't think so. They had many press conferences where they denied the extent and the spread of TDA. After following the viral video, after I started doing interviews and speaking with Homeland Security and the FBI and ATF and different federal organizations, they've let me know that really TDA is all over the United States, all over South America. Really, they've tracked it to most of the world. So when I see, you know, 2 people just being arrested this past weekend over in Colorado Springs, that were allegedly killed a man and tortured him and buried him in the New Mexico desert, it lets me know that what I did was right, that reporting it was something that I had to do, because if I didn't speak up, who would?
But you're also telling me that Aurora police didn't do anything.
No,
with this,
they did.
But the feds did.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And they did make a task force eventually using the videos. And I think that they've reached out to me a couple times wanting me to testify for some RICO cases they've brought against some of the people in my videos. But when after all of this happened and after Trump was elected, they did send someone from the Aurora Police Department to my home and then Edgewater to actually get all of my videos, because I had so many videos that they hadn't even seen, and they're using them to cross-reference the other criminals that have since moved to other states now.
Why don't you start a YouTube channel with all these great videos? You could probably make some cash.
It's so much. It's so much. And after the notoriety that I've received and people recognize me now from seeing me, you know, for almost an entire year on Fox News, I was really anxious to get back to my regular life, where I was a mother and a grandmother and, you know, active with my kids. And I feel like I've done what I could do. Going forward, you know, it's up to people to do their own research now.
So let's bring it from then. That was definitely one of the stepping stones for Donald Trump to win nationwide. Lost Colorado, that wasn't going to be a surprise.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
But I think it touched a nerve with a lot of people who understood immigration was out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Now the narrative in a relatively short amount of time has flopped, and that ICE is the bad guy and the immigrants are the good guys, that ICE has gone too far, that they've been, let's just say, mean. They have been downright violent. They've shot a person. They killed a person in a rather questionable shooting. And so people are looking at this going, he's gone too far. He's doing too much. He is grabbing the wrong people. This is not what I voted for. Give me your impression. Are you pleased by what's going on? Or
Oh yeah, I totally disagree. This is exactly what I voted for.
How do you mean?
Exactly. He promised me that he would do something about the illegal immigration here in Colorado.
When
He
you
did
say that, you're not saying it as a in his advertisements he promised you, or in
No.
the fundraiser, he looked you in the
He
eye.
shook my hand and promised me that he would do something, and he's done it. He's followed through completely. Do I think that ICE is being villainized? Absolutely. Do I think they could do more? Absolutely.
Do more. What more do you want them to do?
Oh, I'd like them to. I'd really like to see Colorado and other blue states cooperate with the federal government. I would really like to see that. I would really like to see ICE not in our streets, but picking up illegal criminals from the jail, from the court, where it's safe and controlled. I'd rather them not be out in the general public picking up people and terrorizing people, but that's where they have to go.
Do you think that when an illegal was in court for a traffic ticket, if he was picked up there, do you think it would be easier on them, easier on society, or that we still have
Absolutely.
the same, the same reaction that we're having now? Hey,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is just a guy dealing with a traffic ticket. He doesn't deserve to be deported just for being part of the system.
I feel illegal is illegal. And because of the not vetting and because they didn't do things on the end when they were coming in, it's going to make it harder for us to get them out. The people who don't want to be here, don't belong
Do
here.
you see a difference between the guys who were terrorizing you and your neighbors, Venezuelan gangs, and immigrants who just wanted a better life and wanted a job here?
Absolutely. I still talk to my neighbors who are being held hostage right along with us and being tortured by their own people.
What do you mean?
There were a lot of Venezuelan immigrants in those buildings that were put there by the gang members, but they were just families. They were just families, and the gang members would put them in there so they could continue to take money from them, continue to extort them, continue to bully them, continue to get things from them. I'm still connected with a lot of those people. I think that it's cruel that the Democrats invited all these people to come in mass and then didn't do anything to continually support them. They let them here with a big promise: we're going to take care of you, we're going to supply this and that. But when the funds ran out, they were homeless in the worst part of the year, in the winter, and that's when they started slowly creeping into the lower income apartments and taking over.
So the difference of the criminals toting guns, terrorizing people, and someone who snuck into the nation, but they want a job. They just want a better life for their kids. Do you see a difference when ICE is grabbing them? Do you want one more than the other, or should they both go?
The criminals should definitely be the target, be the focus. However, if because they're forced into the neighborhoods because the Democrat-led cities and officials refuse to work with ICE, then I think there's no way to tell the difference. Illegal is illegal. If they came here illegally and they cut the line in front of someone else who is doing all the right things to become a citizen of the United States, I feel like you got to go back to start over.
Cindy Romero is the lady who started this incredible fight by recording, I always mispronounce it, Trendedaragua, TDA criminals in her apartment building. So let me ask you this. People are watching and listening and they're going, oh, she just doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. She's being mean. She's putting everybody in the same boat. She doesn't get it. From your perspective, living in Aurora, I'm assuming in the same apartment.
Oh, no. When the day my video went viral, I moved out of the apartment.
For your own safety.
Yes, definitely.
What do you say to somebody who's going down to these ICE rallies and saying, get out of Colorado, get the hell out, or as the mayor of was it Minneapolis? Minnesota said, get the F out to these folks. What do you say to them?
I think that's really tough talk from people who have no plan other than Orange Man bad. They have no finances because the federal government can't be counted on to pay for all these illegal aliens that they've invited in to take over our cities. These people are stockpiling weapons, they're stockpiling fuel, they're stockpiling drugs. This isn't normal assimilation behavior. It isn't. And they don't see what I seen because they didn't have the media lying to them to their faces like I did. Kyle Clark, I know a good friend of yours.
I do. Kyle is a friend. He and I disagree on so much, but we can do it publicly.
I reached out to Kyle before I reached out to anybody.
Really?
Yeah. And he ignored me. You know, that next on 5 or whatever he has. Yeah. I actually emailed that show first with my videos and proof that there was criminals around my building carrying guns, and he ignored it, and then didn't interview me once it did go viral. The media, these people who are going down and doing all this testifying or protesting and demanding ICE leave their cities, it's because they don't know how bad it really is. It's because their media is misleading them intentionally, so they never know how bad it really is.
If Kyle Clark, if the media was not misleading them, what would they be saying in the media? What is it that, if they were doing their job well, what would people learn?
That a lot of these people were invited here and facilitated their coming into the country with the intent on keeping them as Democratic voters. This is voter harvesting. This is keeping people subjected to the federal government so they will always vote Democrat. And I think it's going to backfire now.
Let me give you an analogy, and I'll make it very personal. I have always had a great deal of empathy and sympathy for people who are homeless. That you see these people, many of them, most of them, are either drug dependent or have mental issues, and it's not their fault that they're wandering the streets. And my heart goes out to them. But because the state and the city of Denver and other cities have done such a lousy job cleaning up our streets, keeping them off of private property, including our building, where we have to clean up their mess, clean up their feces, clean up their vomit, clean up their urine, clean up their litter, clean up their needles, and clean them up and try to get them off when they're belligerent so that we can just do our work. After years of having to pay the price, one, to pay the cops to not really do their job and arrest these people, and then to pay again for extra security and cleaning up and extra video surveillance and all sorts of things to make our property safe, I have lost my humanity. I no longer see these people as human beings anymore because all I do is clean up after them because the government has failed their job. And now I just want them gone. I want a bulldozer to come. I want them picked up and put in the back of a truck. I want them turned into Soylent Green. I want them out of here because I'm dealing with this and we have to spend our budget cleaning up this mess because the government doesn't enforce the damn law. Now, somebody who lives in Douglas County or up in Jefferson County hears that and goes, well, you don't understand. They're just trying to do this. I guarantee you anybody who has to deal with it day after day after day after day after day ends up feeling very different and loses, I'm going to say, your humanity.
Yeah, you lose a piece of your humanity, but you have all this rage to replace it because I do.
Yeah, so is it the same thing in Aurora when your community is dealing with this day after day after day and nothing gets done?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've just recently moved back to Aurora, but you can still see it in Glendale. You pull up to Alameda in Colorado, and there's people out there washing your windshield still. That you still see it. It doesn't make you stop being outraged at it because really it is another bill by our federal government, local government. It's just another bill that us as taxpayers have to pay. People don't realize all the money that's going into that, the homeless industrial complex that doesn't work. It's just a way to keep NGOs full of money. They never want to solve the actual problem. I used to be homeless back in the day, a long time ago. The endless cycle of support and catering to, it keeps the people in that endless loop of being homeless. So even if you are homeless and they put you into a place, you don't have the skills or the tools necessary to keep that place. So you're right back out on the streets again. There's nothing that they are doing here in Colorado, period, that is going to solve homelessness. They might, edge it back a little bit, like Mayor Johnston, but they're not going to solve it.
And these are two different things. One, immigration. Two, homelessness. And I
Yeah,
understand
I mean,
there's
it's
a lot of
of the
crossover.
same. Yeah, it's a lot of the same.
But the person washing your windshield in New York before Rudy Giuliani became mayor, those were the squeegee guys, and the squeegee guys were protection racket. You either give me some money and I'm not really cleaning it, or I break your windshield wiper. I haven't seen that in Colorado.
No,
I've seen actual people trying to making a living, and so they're washing your window, and they're asking you for something. I don't see the threat. I don't see the it would be a shame if something happened to your car threat.
Well,
I see something different there. Do you?
They throw dirty water on your car if you don't have cash. They steal the squeegees that they're using from the local gas stations to whatever corner they stand on. So this isn't a victimless job. I always say no. I'm one of those people who don't carry cash, so I always have cards in my pocket, and I'm not going to give a stranger my card, so I always say no. And they always wash my car anyway. But they don't wash the windshield. They're using dirty water to wash the windshield. So when they leave, I just have to wash my windshield anyway. So it's not victimless. It's not just people trying to make a dime. A lot of them take advantage of the, you're packed in traffic. There's nowhere you can go. So if you aren't pulled by your heartstrings by their plight, if you're not emotionally driven to give them money, you're still stuck in traffic with them.
After you've gone through this and you were at the eye of the storm, how did your life change? Were you threatened? Was it the media that drove you crazy? Did somebody try to get at you? Did you feel unsafe?
I still feel unsafe. I still carry a gun. I still don't put my car in park when I pull up to things. When people are whispering near me in a different language, I still get extra paranoid.
Paranoid of what?
Reciprocation. I mean, these people kidnap people and kill them and torture them. They kidnap people from my building and kidnapped and tortured them. It isn't a big stretch to think that I'm in danger, and the FBI agrees that I'm probably in danger.
They've kidnapped and tortured people from your building?
Oh, I know they did. It happened in December. I moved out of the building in August 28th. They came in December and kidnapped a couple 2 buildings down, and they tortured them.
How do you prove that? How do you know that? Maybe they just left.
I know that because they got arrested, and they Todd Chamberlain, the chief of police in Aurora, did a big news article on it. I actually have my neighbors all back up to the property along Dallas Street where I used to live. So I know the people who own those houses back there. And they were nice enough to get up on their roof and take me a lot of video when the police run up in there in December, and they had found that they had kidnapped a couple and tortured them. I still have court cases I have to go to and to testify.
Tell me more about that.
When they came in, the Aurora PD came after I moved, and they got me to give them all of my videos. I gave them a year and a half worth of videos from 8 different cameras. Well, they're using them to identify these people from other states. They're identifying other TDA members, and they're using my videos to connect them with RICO charges. And I've been subpoenaed to testify in 2 such trials. There's both postponed till January sometime, so I'm still waiting to hear back on those.
And are these federal charges, or is this local Aurora PD?
It was Aurora PD who contacted me about them, but I believe they're going to be connected to federal charges. One of the people they just arrested down in the Springs this past week.
So after all the arrests, after all the deportations, after all the ICE protests that we see every weekend, do you feel safer in Aurora? Is there a noticeable difference, or
Yes.
is it still just as bad?
There is a noticeable difference in that crime is down, and not just the manipulating the numbers. Crime is down. You can see it. Crime is down. I moved back to Aurora about 2 months ago, and I sit out on my balcony and I listen for sirens. And the first thing I did when I moved back into Aurora was set up more cameras. So I have cameras from every direction. Luckily, the the landholders and the landlords at the apartments that I rent now, they are very accommodating to cameras, and they like it. They like the idea of me putting cameras up everywhere, so I do. It's safer, but it's not safe.
It's safer, but it's not safe.
Yeah, well, you could tell by how they got together. They had this big get-together the other day when Maduro was arrested in Venezuela when he was...
They who?
The Venezuelans, the local Venezuelans there in Aurora had a big get-together in a shopping mall parking lot, and somebody got hurt.
Were they celebrating his, or were they upset that he was taken?
They were celebrating he was taken, actually.
Okay.
And I celebrated too. I celebrated for them. I do not wish ill will towards the people who were here trying to escape that kind of living situation, a failing country. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to survive. However, I do fully support now that their country is going to be reinvigorated with their oil, with their oil money. Yeah.
Look at you, Miss Politician.
Reinvigorated with now getting proceeds from their own oil. I hope this allows them the security, and maybe they'll take Kristi Noem up on her offer and take that $3,000 and go home and build them a better life, because they were never going to get the American dream here. That was a false promise by the Democrats. They were never...
Why do you think it was a false promise?
Because there are Americans here who don't have the American dream. Because they offer them insurance when there are Americans here who can't afford health care. Because they offer them temporary assistance, but when that temporary runs out, they get that cold, harsh reality that there is no American dream here unless you fight and work for it. And we are not guaranteed.
Don't we want to give them the chance to fight for that? I mean, I want to see more legal immigration. I want to see it on all sides of not just the people who are here to be programmers and doctors and scientists, but also the people who wash the dishes and clean the rooms in hotel rooms.
Well, you and Highland moms both.
Yeah, but because I don't think our ancestors were much different, that they wanted something to come and work for. I want good people here. I want bad people kicked out.
I want the people who are already in line, who already are making sacrifices with their families and have left their country years and years ago to get in line the correct way. I want those people to be here first. I feel like they, maybe their morals are better and stronger, that they know that they can't just jump in front of people in line. I mean, who doesn't hate when somebody cuts in line at the gas station or Walmart when you're in a hurry too? I feel like there's a lot of people that have made investments and have built families waiting in line to come into the United States.
After your first meeting with Trump, was there a second meeting? Has there been any communication from the administration? Were you just used for his campaign, or is there?
I've made several contacts with the people in the administration. I learned a lot of people.
That was a little sly smile you gave me. What does that mean?
Well, I went to D.C. in April, and I testified in front of Congress. And at that time, I reached out to the campaign, and they were very accommodating and very willing to give me a tour of the White House. And
oh, how fun!
Yeah, let me see some stuff there that was great. And although it was all surreal, testifying in front of Congress.
What did you testify for?
They just had me tell my story. The committee was on something about the overreach of judicial overreach. People are trying to interfere in Trump's plans for immigration. And I sat in and testified on that. But I think they really just wanted me to get my story on record, because it's going to be part of history. It's going to be those changes that were made because of him getting elected, that it's going to be part of history. It's going to be studied. It's going to be looked at. It's going to be 20 years from now, there's going to be someone from Independence Institute telling us that we did it wrong. It was very surreal, but at the same time, I've never felt more welcomed. I've never felt more embraced than when I did communicate with the Republicans associated with that, me testifying in Congress.
Have you always been a Republican?
No.
Are you a Republican? Oh, smart.
I voted Republican.
If you found yourself at one of those anti-ICE rallies that form everywhere. You know, I live in Boulder; they're omnipresent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and if you could talk to somebody who is there, who's willing to listen, what is it you would tell them? If you want to convince them you're on the wrong side of this issue, here's why. What would you think they don't know that they need to know?
They think with their emotions. So it's all ideology, it's all their feelings and their anxiety, and they're frustrated. And I understand all those feelings because I used to be on the other side of it. However, what Trump's doing is he's playing geopolitical chess. He's not worried about 2 or 3 guys robbing a liquor store here and, holding up an old lady. He's worried about politics on the grand scale. They're positioning the position of Iran, China, and Russia in the Western Hemisphere is going to cause problems if they allow that to continue. ICE, if they don't get the illegal criminals out of here.
You can see that they sometimes, maybe even often, get it wrong and toss out the wrong person, that they target the wrong people. Do you concede that? Do you see that as something that happens?
There's collateral damage with every operation. Every single operation, there's going to be collateral damage. If we pick up somebody and hold them for 10 hours while we make sure they're an American citizen, to me, I feel like it's safer if your mom don't get shot and go to the store on her way to the store. So I feel like I'm good with them being held for 10 hours until we can identify them. If it keeps, someone else from getting shot.
Watch out, lady. You had a last name Romero. Romero, you might find yourself in one of those.
I've been accused of being a sellout for my nationality and selling out my people. And I said, my people live in Aurora. I've never been to Mexico. I'm Mexican, but I was born in Tennessee. My dad was in the Army, and I was a military family, and that comes from it's a different kind of pride that you get from being a member of a military family. And you support the U.S. no matter what, because there's no greater country on earth. What I would tell those people protesting is, where else would you go? Where else would you go when anybody would care what you say?
And love it or leave it, doesn't it?
Well, where else would you go where anybody would care what you say? Because try going around and protesting in Iran. Try protesting in Venezuela. See if anyone listens. The U.S. is the only place that not only will we allow you to protest, but we'll actually hear what you have to say. We'll hear your side of it, even if it's wrong.
And we'll put you on welfare while you do it.
Yeah.
Cindy, thank you. I learned a lot. This was terrific.
Thank you so much.
And you, think freedom. Did you enjoy that conversation? Well, check out one of these. We have the most interesting conversations with Colorado's most fascinating people. Be sure not to miss a single one. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell icon. And if you can't watch, listen. Check out the Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite listening app. And by all means, think freedom.